We'll begin in 4 minutes. Thank you for joining me, students. Good to see all of you, at least your names. Hi, Evie, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Great. Latoya, Mandy, Alondra. I've been talking to Jason. Evie, did you get my message?
I did, I got your text, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to begin. I do want to cover 2 chapters with you on PowerPoint. I haven't done that. Do you have any questions so far? Because I'm looking at the calendar as I wait for you. And I know your exams would be the first week of May. Am I correct in that it starts on the 3rd? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to do is we'll meet Thursday and Tuesday again of Thursday of this week and Tuesday of this next week. And then see if I can post your exams for you to take on the 29th. So I bring you back on the 4th and we can review what you did for exams and we can say our goodbyes. I just can't see myself just sending you for exams on the 4th. And then bringing you, again to not review. So what I'm going to discuss for today and Thursday as well as next Tuesday is see if we are all in agreement. And then instead of joining me on the 29th Thursday, you do your exam. It's going to be simple. I'll review it on Tuesday. And then you go back, we come back together on Tuesday and go over the exam so that we can have a closure. I would like your opinion on that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? So that means that I have to review your exam on the 27th.
Okay.
You don't join the 29th. You go ahead and do your exam, and then we come together to mark your calendars on the 4th at this time. We review what you did. We go over a little bit of information, and I give you some heads up as to what to expect in your future courses, etc. And as you go into becoming a teacher, and bring you to a closure. So I think that's how I want to do it instead of sending you off, doing exam on that day, and I never see you again. I never talk with you. All right, so let's begin this afternoon on. Always tell me if you have a question, you have any concerns. I cannot read your mind. We have a small group. I really look forward to meeting with all of you, even though we meet for such short periods. On Thursday, I was able to attend the Gateways workshop for 2 days, and I am a fellow, so I must attend. It's an honor to be a fellow with Gateways. But I also enjoyed some of the experiences I had with my colleagues.
12:30.
One of the things that I would love to share with you is that as we think about how the child thinks, and we don't know what's going on in the mind of that little itty bitty person walking around. As soon as they can take a step, what are they looking at? Why are they looking so curious? What's going through their minds? Well, one of the things that I unexpectedly and happily was able to see what was going on is that they put something on the child's head that was able to read what the brain was going through and what it was experiencing. And the professor that presented, she's from out of state in she did such a marvelous job that, we wonder, do they think? They see things and they act as though we don't know. They look at mommy's face, they look at you, they respond. But as they walk away from you, the curiosity in their whole body and their whole action. And so I want to share with you that to me, it was a very, very exciting opportunity for me to be able to be a part of this. And I know that I had to cancel class, but it was part of my responsibility to attend. Another thing we're doing is that the state of Illinois is actually going to take over using the gateway standards as we move ahead. I'm on that committee for writing the standards, doing the crosswalk with the early childhood standards. It's not going to be different. They're going to complement each other. But as you become a teacher, you probably will already see this implemented. We're still working on writing and cleaning up some of the standards. So those are also the important things that I want to share that we as fellows do when we meet with gateways. So with that said, I know some of you just joined me, and I will reiterate what I said. Today, we're going to cover chapters. Thursday, we're going to cover chapters. The 27th, we're going to review for your exam, because what I told the few that were already joined me earlier is that the 29th, I want to give you your exam, but I will definitely review the 27th. Why am I giving it the week before? It's because I will bring you back on Tuesday to be with me to review what the exam was all about, to talk to you about how you did, but not individual and talk about your grades, but to actually bring everything to a closure. So that would be on the 4th of Tuesday. So that testing you, we come back, we convene, and we kind of wrap up our sessions. So if you all agree, and if you have any concerns about that, let me know. I'm not letting you off a week before. I'm giving the exam a day before, which would be the 29th. And then I'll do the same with the other group. And then for sure, even though you finish your exam, you need to come back with me on the 4th so we can give you some final words and review of what we did. To me, an exam is an assessment that shows what you have learned, but also shows how much and what I have covered with you. So whenever we give an assessment, it's a two-way venue that we must always remember. Today, I will go through some notes with you, and then, of course, you'll see the PowerPoints I have brought up to cover. Right now, I would like you to think about implications for teaching. This is your foundation. This is your preparation. We're teaching children, some who don't have a voice of their own, some who are afraid. Others are extroverts and they are talking, and Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences is the intra and the interpersonal child. The intra is the one that is shy and he's or she's present, but don't talk to me if I don't have to talk to you because I'm still not secure. The interpersonal child, as you know, Howard Gardner will always be part of your education, as Bloom will. The interpersonal ones, me, constantly, I want to be the leader, I want to be this, I'll take, and those are the leadership qualities in them. But we also know that the intrapersonal child gets lost because he's so quiet and you don't know what he's thinking and you don't know when he's not understanding something. It is your responsibility to look at that. So implications of teaching, we need to know Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. Read, understand it. It's not something I need you to memorize for a test. I am asking you to make it a part of you so that when you deal with your own children at home, your own siblings, your better half, your spouse, your parents, you understand that we all inherited, and it's part of our genes, our multiple intelligence. It's how we learn. what attracts us the most, what has the part of our brain that brings us to that interest more than the other. But we also have talked that if you are attracted to math or science or environmental, whatever, it doesn't mean that you do not learn in the other manner. The IQ is different. I've explained that to you. IQ is the capacity in which you learn. The Howard Gardner is the manner in which, or the preference of learning that you have. Whereas we must emphasize that even if Ms. Muster is not mathematically inclined, you will make sure that I learn math because you're my teacher. And of course, you won't rely on the parents. And I will learn math, but I will be more in tune with science or whatever, or reading language, which I know I am. So you check yourselves as you read Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence and see where you fit. And you're able to understand each other in your household, as well as your students in the classroom, which of course is what we are very concerned about when you become a teacher. Okay. We are going to talk over and over in all the classes about using Bloom's taxonomy, which is bringing children to higher order thinking skills and developing it by asking those higher order thinking questions. But right now, let's look at implications for teaching. And we have everyone here present except one person. And I am very concerned because we only have a short time. So I'm going to call that person and help catch up with that person. But right now, what does it mean to
他们看来各位如果把这个
What's to do as a teacher to engage children?
I don't know 各位先啦
Given responsibilities of to do with your students. Well, part of our book, which is chapter 12, tells us that we will develop, and please write this down, we will develop a relationship with the child. We will develop a rapport with the child. That's your French word, R-A-P-P-O-R-T. A rapport with the child. And another way of expressing this, teachers, is that we will have what we call an attachment. Attachment is not where you touchy, feel. The attachment on the child's part, where the child trusts you and knows that he or she is safe when you're around. That's what educators and scientists and specialists have explained the word attachment. In your area exams, before you get your certificate for teaching and your licensure, you will take an area exam. So all these things that I cover with you, keep them in your teacher's toolbox because they will come back. You are a little bit distant from taking your exams for state licensure, but it will come, it will creep up on you so quickly that I want you to make sure that you keep your notes from this course. This is your foundations, and I've covered beyond what the syllabus tells us to do. I've covered every single thing in that syllabus plus more. So if you have not attended, I'm very sorry. If you've been attending, and I have attendance, I don't mean this, I mean listening and paying attention to what we're covering, you will find it very useful, even in the web that I had you create, not just the web, but the Venn diagram. You know, if they ask you a question in your area exam, what would you do for compare and contrasting? You could say the T chart, but for the a little older children, the 6-7-year-olds, you did the Venn diagram, and they may ask you to explain what you're saying. All these things, teachers, will come back and be helpful to you as you proceed in getting the licensure to become a teacher. So I beg you to please pay close attention to your lectures and to your professors. And we're doing our best to cover for not being face-to-face with you. And I just not teach what's in the book, but I bring experience, and I hope that you are taking advantage of that. We develop this rapport with the child, where the child feels safe with you, away from his parents, away from his home. And sometimes that safety that we experience with you is a lot stronger than some family situations that they may have to live with. Then the second one is you want always to encourage children to play and to learn through play. Because that's what early childhood education is about. The 3, the 4-year-old, the toddler, you are understanding from the beginning why early childhood education started focusing on the preschool age, the ages before they're entitled to go to kindergarten. Not just because they wanted parents to get off the welfare system as soon as they could, but to provide them with an education to be able to provide for their families, but not only that, to show that they were able to be hired if they were able to go to school and pick up an education. And many times, if a parent is able to bring his or her child to a daycare or to a center, it is supposed to be free because that parent is not at that income level where he or she can pay for preschool for all, but that parent is expected to be showing productivity in the manner of working or actually going to school to better him or herself in terms of education, so that in the long term, they can hold on a job. In this country, education is available if we know that we want it. However, it was mandated in the 70s that because too many people were relying on public assistance, and then the government did realize that we were not doing good to our parents and to our families. And they say this fish story where you feed them a fish and stuff, but if you teach them to fish, they will have a long life skill to be able to provide for longevity, etc., of providing for their families. And this goes to men and women. It's not just talking about because men were going to work. No, this is all parents are given the opportunity. So you get them, you want them to play, to be still that little child that is developing physically, emotionally, psychologically, and socially in your presence and under your supervision. The third one is to reduce stress. How do you do this with children in your care? It is a difficult world, which is more difficult because of technology.
Time for you to go class,
Technology
you.
exposes children to so much.
Go
More than
class,
when I
you.
was little, when there was no television. I was born in 1950.
Baby class.
And we played outside, we went to school, we came, we showered, we ate dinner, we did homework.
Go to class, you.
We played.
Yeah, fish ball when you're done.
In our yards, we ran, we climbed trees, those were the days. But then came technology, which is awesome, which without technology, even medical, the modern technicians and technology has provided a lot of clearance and knowledge to scientists, etc., as well as to the medical system and the teaching profession. But prior to that, with that came a whole lot of issues where we rely heavily on technology and we forget that the human person needs more than just staring at the screen. I will tell you, I really miss being in the classroom with you all. But I also know that I'm fortunate, and you are, to be able to sit in your PJs and maybe listen to the semester and your other teachers. So there is always a balance, hopefully, in whatever happens in our lives. The children are vulnerable. They're either sitting all day with a tablet, not able to go out and play and all that. And because of the danger, because of the lack of supervision, because the area in which they live, is not conducive for them to be out playing. But then how do we balance their lives? By bringing them to the classroom where you're watching them and supervising and teaching them. But yet we tend to forget that children at that age learn through play and socialization. And too quickly, we're pushing them to hold the pencil, to learn to write, and their little muscles haven't even developed. And we've talked about that, right? So let's provide them with learning through play, learning to get along through play, through supervision, through scaffolding them, supporting them temporarily, and letting them know it is okay. It is okay if you have a little tiff with your peer or whatever. Let's see how we can resolve it, because tomorrow or later on you'll see them play. This is part of growing up. They don't have this opportunity too much at home, perhaps, because if they don't have siblings, or if they have siblings, it's a different situation. You intentionally must provide. You must intentionally provide the opportunity for children to get along, or to know how to conflict resolution, the conflict resolution technique that you will help them work through. You don't resolve it for them. You hope that they will resolve, and then you intervene if it cannot be resolved. That's what you're doing. I know you have a curriculum, and your principal or your supervisors will be pushing the academics. But if you put the walls and the roof before you lay the foundation, which is putting academics before you actually prepare the child with his physiological, neurological, emotional part of his being, you are setting the child for failure and for the house to collapse. You can't put a wall and roof up unless that foundation has been strongly built. And that's what I can compare what you do with your students. You laying the foundation. If you give them safety and security, you have overcome a lot of their anxieties that they have. The next point, besides reducing stress, is that you will provide opportunities for your children to be successful. Each child needs to feel that he can succeed at something or many things. What we tend to do is that we try to fit them all in one mold. And that if 20 to 30% of the class has captured a skill, we expect that they all do. That is poor teaching. That is not even teaching. We want to make sure that every step of success that the child arrives at, you have positive feedback. Maybe Mandy will have advanced 4 or 5 steps before Diana or Yesenia. You still will praise Diana and Yesenia and encourage to reach the level, even though they may be slower than Mandy. I'm just giving you an example. But we tend to believe that they all progress at the same time. No, every child is an individual. Every child brings his past or no past experience in certain areas. That's why we need to understand that environment plays a big part. After the child is born, that's postnatal. The minute the child is born, his immediate environment plays a great deal as to how that child is going to learn and progress in his life. And the first 3 years, we're told, are the most impressionable years. Not just because at 3, the brain has grown to its fullest, but because those are the immediate environment at home, or if the child has to be taken to a caregiver, that it will definitely have an impact on that child. You have a big responsibility, and it's easy to say, reduce the stress in the children, but yet it is your responsibility to do that, to celebrate every opportunity of each child's success. You don't have to be giving a tangible reward. There are many other ways you can do it. You want to enroll children, if you can, and parents can, in a short after school program, but depending on age. I don't understand how, after a long day of being in the classroom, 3 and 4-year-olds, parents who cannot come pick them up have signed them up for after school, and then the school is giving them, again, sit at the desk, at the chair, at your desk, and then we will continue with the instruction of the day. No, that after school program for those children, and you have very little control, I know, should be a playtime, a social time for them. Of course, very much structured so that no one gets hurt. But that's what I would like to see. Of course, they provide snacks for them. Again, I am going through these as a review because I would hope that you know what I'm saying. These are not difficult terminologies or statements. You're applying them to you and to your classroom when you become an early childhood educator. We want to give guidance, and I don't like the word that our book tells us, discipline. I want consequences when necessary. The book is just sticking with that no word. I don't like the word discipline, and neither should you. It is consequence when needed. So we are firm. We teach them with, I'm very strict, but I never ever want any child to feel that I'm demeaning them, but I'm firm. When I say no, I'll follow up with an explanation. And that is consequences. If you did this, then there are consequences. But the consequences, like you will learn in your other courses, are such that they do not hurt the child physically or emotionally. Consequences teach and redirect the child. Punishment hurts physically and emotionally, and that should never, ever, ever exist. Yes, it existed in the early days. I grew up with corporal punishment in the classroom. My parents never raised a hand at me, but the teachers did in those days. And some southern states, I hear, they still have it. It's illegal to begin with. But we don't only not do it because it's illegal. We don't do it because it hurts the child. When we think of punishing a child, we give consequences. We lead them with love and firmness and consistency. So this is what this is talking about, and I hope that you're jotting down some of these because these are your toolbox items. Communication. Communicate. We are relying on not just parents to establish a form of communication with our children, but we are listening to them. It's part of communication is listening. Believe it or not, when the word communication is heard, we think it's a person is interacting verbally one with the other. No, communication is a body messages, facial expressions, body expressions. If I fold my arms and I shake my head, I am saying something that is communicating a message. If I perk my lips like this, I am communicating a message. But the communication goes beyond that. Part of communication skills, and I did for many years teach this at Northeastern after I retired, is listening, active listening, not passive listener. So if you're listening to Ms. Master right now, you are communicating in a way with me, because part of what you are, the intake to your cognition is indicating that you are communicating, even though you're a silent communicator, because you are the receptor. And I'm the one that is giving it for your brain, your cognition to absorb. Now, if I was sitting here talking a different language, Russian or whatever, which I don't know, you would not be communicating with me because you wouldn't understand what's happening, even though you're listening, because you have to listen for whatever reason. So when we talk about communication teachers in this situation, or in this the connotation that it brings with it, is that I said listening is a part of our communication with children, and vice versa, children listening and or you listen to them, is because part of that is pushing to tell you, when you're speaking to the child, that child must be understanding what you're saying. And as he's listening, he is what? He's absorbing it. He's making a mental picture, and the brain is automatically recording it. But if the child is listening but doesn't understand what you're saying, then it's of no avail. You're just totally lost or wasted.
I'm in class, man.
Part of communication is active listening. For it to be active listening is either the child is participating with it intermittently, or the child is definitely understanding what you are teaching or communicating to him or her. Okay, so that is a part that I want to emphasize, even though it's not so clearly brought up into the in our chapter. I apologize. Excuse me. Then we want to create a classroom community. That bullet, I hope you're all, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullets we ran. How do you do that? Excuse me. We create a community in the classroom and we call it a family, but it doesn't really have to be called a family community. What brings you together? The word commune is coming together. In terminology, the word commune or community or communism, the word communism took such a horrible derogative meaning because of what human beings turned it into. You know, communism is a horrible, horrible concept today, and rightly so. But if you look at the definition of what commune or communism should have been, if it wasn't totally used to destroy human beings and to hurt the rich hurting the poor, it was meant to bring together equally, equal benefits to everyone. And in this classroom, let's apply to our classroom because that's what we're talking about, not sociology. In our classroom, we create this community, this commune, where every child belongs, where every child is supposed to be feeling within him that he is equal, no matter what the color of his skin is, the color of his eyes is, or the color of his hair. How do you do this to these babies that I'm sending you off to work with after this and your professors are sending you off? It is your moral and ethical responsibility, as it is mine. We need to make them feel that they belong. We need to make them feel that their brown hair, their brown skin, their dark eyes, their eyebrows, whatever color that they may bring with them is to be celebrated. That's the beauty in them. And we start by one of the standards that say, have them look in the mirror and admire themselves, and then turn to each other. And then you have teachers having them draw their peer next to them or draw themselves. You are celebrating who they are and how they look, and it starts from you. It starts down there in the early childhood classes. And I will tell you a story. When I was principal for so many years in my one school, never moved from there for 36 years, and I got to know something that people wonder how, and they say it over and over. Not only did I became familiar the second week of class with all my students that were new to me, but I will tell you that I would walk by the primary grades, kindergarten and preschool, and I could tell those, not silhouettes, but the drawings that the children had done at the beginning of the year, and they would hang them outside the classrooms. And I would walk from preschool to kindergarten to first grade down there on my first floor because I kept the babies down there. And I could identify just from the way they drew their faces who that person was and who drew that. I could tell that was Yesenia, that was Alondra, there was Latoya. Your personality would be brought out. Now, it is true that research says that not until they are 6 years old, going on to 7, can they put details into their drawings. And I could see that. So the kindergarten and the first graders were already transitioning into details as they would make their pictures. But honestly, even the way they would draw the color of their clothes and they were in uniform and stuff, and I would walk in and I would say, I think I know whose picture this is, whose drawing this is. And they wouldn't even wait for me to say, it's me, teach me, Miss Master, me, Miss Master. And they're celebrating how they look. And then suddenly, they go into groups where they're discriminated against and it breaks your heart, right? But where does it begin, teachers? You play a part of this. You are the way you treat them, the way you celebrate them, the way you tell them and make them feel important, and the way you make them feel safe. And that's the attachment part. So we communicate, we create a classroom community, which I'm talking about now, by your example, by the activities that you allow them and do with them, and by making sure that in some lesson during that day or before the week is over, every single week, there is something where you have made them proud of how they look, the color of their eyes and everything. It baffles me when I hear someone ask, what color of eyes are the eyes blue or blonde when someone is born? And I won't call this person a friend. She irritated me often. She's thank God retired kindergarten teacher, not in my school, but I got to meet her. For many years, it bothered me till I had to say something. But the minute you would say, my neighbor had a baby or my niece had a baby, what color eyes? Are they blue? Are they blonde? And I wanted to say, you're the last person I want teaching a child in my school. And I couldn't say it until I got enough of it. And of course, I heard that she retired, not from the school alone, anywhere where I was principal. But I wondered the damage that this person was doing to our children who had dark hair or dark skin or who didn't have blue eyes. But she was so not fascinated. She was emotionally thwarted. How often do we tell children and build a community and say, you each look like either one of your parents or more like one of your parents than the other, but you have a similarity. And if you look around and I see your brothers, I know your sister or your brother. Aren't you happy? You're unique. What does unique mean, Miss Master? It means you're special because you look different, because if we all look like Miss Master, this world would be so boring, right? Yeah, Miss Master. And then you relate with them and you talk with them. The bit of self-esteem that you build with these children will last forever when they're encountering prejudice, meanness, or teachers like I explained to you, who I finally had to say, I am so glad that I never had you in my school. And this person was not an animal person, minority. And imagine the biases that come with all this. And it bothers so to this day that I did not put a closure to this person from the first time I heard it. Anyway, this is what I'm talking about. The community, you share the responsibilities equally. They have their schedules. You do the board now, you do the bucket, you help each other, you wash, you clean the board, you hold the bucket with the paper for the washroom, everything. Everyone must have equal responsibilities and the rotation must be even and equal. And even the child who comes tattered, well, now they wear uniforms, or not looking very much like she or he gets what he should be getting like the others, you will compensate for it. It makes a difference. How they look at each other, how they respect each other, it comes from you. So we build a community. Create a clash. Okay, the next one is to promote friendships. We build this. It'll be easier for some rather than the others. If an only child will have a hard time. Child who has siblings will not have a problem talking to her classmates or his classmates. Those who are in an environment from home that is abusive sometimes will show abusiveness towards their classmates. If they hit this child at home, it is kind of clear, not all of the time, but the way this child is striking out at others when he or she's upset, that's a red flag. and you need to observe that. So we build what we want to promote in terms of friendship. Friendship is we don't exclude, so you will not exclude. And starting 3 years old, not the ego child, the one that's 2 years old, that's normal for them to say me, mine, give me, no, don't touch my stuff. But the 3-year-olds are now beginning to exclude others in the classroom. You have to be aware of this, and it's a zero tolerance. You don't reprimand the child, you redirect the child, and you teach them how to be inclusive, not exclusive. And it's very easy because they tend to immediately forget what they did. You know, Ariel says, I don't want Chuni nor Latoya play with me today. You come, Evie and Alondra and Jerson, you can play with me. And they're saying it out loud. And then what happens with Chuni and Victor and Latoya, we kind of, and you're listening to this, what is it that you're going to do to make sure this doesn't go any further? You will lower yourself to the level of the child who's saying this, and you will whisper, would you like that one person in your classroom say you cannot play with them? How would you feel? Tell me. I would probably be crying right now, and I know you don't want to hurt your classmate. So you're whispering to the child. You're not belittling the child, because it's a natural thing sometimes for them to start doing that. But if it is not nipped at the bud, it will continue, and you had the opportunity to stop it, to redirect them. So you have to promote friendship. Be approachable and available. If you have a professor, a teacher that makes you not feel that you can approach them, what would you do? You would drop the class. You would go complain. You would definitely want to make sure that you don't want to be in that classroom, and it is your right to say no. I'm paying my tuition, but children don't have that privilege because they don't have a voice like you do, right? So you can assert yourself, but oftentimes they cannot. And so you have to be their voices. You have to be there to help them transition. Everyone has emotions, like I told my students this morning. And it is okay, we're alive. We have emotions, we're supposed to have emotions. Because if we didn't, we would not be alive, we would not be like human beings. But how we direct our emotions and control them, and how you as the teacher, who is in place of the parents, will guide these babies. Teachers, you're heading into a profession that we almost believe that you have to be a magician and be all over the place, but you can do it. If I can do it for 53 years, I want to say 53. I'm going to be 71, and I started being a teacher very early. You can do it, but you have to have a passion for it. And you're everything. You're the local parents. You're in place of the parent. Never forget that. And if parents are bad to these children, you have to be 50 times, 100% a better local parent, is better than that parent, because you have a piece of parents that these babies go through. Okay, so be approachable, because only then will the child be able to come talk to you and feel safe with you. Use teachable moments to nurture feelings of competence. Use teachable moments to nurture feelings of competence. That is building the child's self-esteem. I like the way you place those eyes on the figure that you were drawing. Oh, no. Don't ever say you can't do it.
Can you repeat that? Use teachable moments to nature.
Use teachable moments to nurture feelings of competence. How do you nurture feelings of competence? Not just by praising, it's a good boy. No. What did I do good? Be specific. But there are times that the little moments of success can escape you and that child doesn't get compensated. Celebrate the child for the individual child that he is, because Latoya's success in one step of learning math or reading or letters or whatever may be far-fetched from Tuni or Ciara, but Ciara made us an effort and she's trying and struggling to learn. Ciara needs to be praised so that she can build her self-esteem. Too often do we destroy that child's self-esteem with one word. So it tells us, use any moment, teachable moment. No, you don't know I was watching you, but when Cindy dropped her pencil, you reached over automatically and you picked it up for her. That was a very nice gesture. And that little child looks up at you with those beautiful eyes, as if to say, she noticed me. She noticed what I did, or he noticed it. You make appropriate accommodations, right? That's your next bullet. Make appropriate accommodations. This does not mean lowering your expectations for these children, but it may involve giving some children more time to complete an assignment. I'm not talking about special needs yet. I'm talking that some children move at a slower pace. So what is all that I'm saying to you is each child is an individual. Each child, like Howard Gardner says, learns with his own style. And you must get to know the style of that child, the learning style. It is easy to teach children that learn quickly. It is easy to teach children that come so prepared from home because of all that the facilities and facilitations and all the material stuff that, or the trips or the wherever exposure they have. That doesn't make you a good teacher. It doesn't make me a good teacher. When I have taught a child something that he did not know, or that child who came with a very, almost a vessel that was not at the level it should be, and I brought that child to that level, that proves to me that I am an effective teacher. It's easy to teach a bright child. It's easy to teach children that come already with half preparation. That doesn't make you a good teacher though. That doesn't make you an effective teacher, and I'll explain something to you in a minute. So we want to reinforce positive behaviors by letting them know that you, and acknowledge that you saw it. And then the last thing, but not least, is encourage good physical health. How? By you demonstrating how they should wash their hands, how they can brush their teeth, and actually encourage them when you serve food or food is being served for them, that it's okay if they don't like their vegetables, but we will make it fun and we'll turn it into some kind of pleasant way for them to eat their veggies. And I remember Popeye the Sailor Man with spinach. And I will share with you a personal story. My daughter hated spinach. My husband believed spinach had a lot of nutritional value. And so one of the ways to get her to eat her spinach was Popeye the Sailor Man was always on when she had a break and he had a break. And he, of course, he went, his being a professor at Loyola, his schedule was different than mine because I was in CPS, but he made sure that he showed her how Popeye's muscles grew, but he was able to use that in those days. Today, you have other ways of promoting veggies. They cut them into beautiful shapes and they make it look interesting for the children. And so we find ways of making them eat something they don't, even at home, they may not like. But again, healthy nutritional practices will encourage them not only to eat healthy, but also it is natural for them, because children will say, no, if you could give them sweets all day, they would eat sweets all day. So with that, I'll have to also share something before going to the PowerPoint. What I said to you teachers, that when a teacher feels that he or she only wants to teach the bright child or the child that comes with preparation and thinks that he or she's an effective teacher, it isn't. And one of the things I will never forget, I had this fantastic teacher in my school, and I was sorry to see her leave to go to Europe when during the that war that they were removing, you know, the Bosnian War, and they were trying to get the Romanians out of Bosnia. I don't know if you remember that war. Maybe you weren't even born yet. Not that long ago though. And she spoke Serbian and Croatian. And so she was having financial difficulties for whatever reason. And she said to me, Miss Mester, and she became a dear friend of mine, I need to get away and see how I can make some extra money or I will lose my house. And so she was very gifted in that, very lucky, very fortunate, I should say, that she knew not only English, but her mom was Serbian, her father Croatian, and she knew both languages. Now, if you know, there's a tiff between the two, the Croatians and the Serbians. One thinks he's better than the other, but if you switch from Serbian and Croatian, it's almost a similar language, but the way the enunciation and pronunciation is what makes the difference. So she knew how to switch back and forth. And so she applied with the government and she became a general's translator. Made lots of money, but I was able to hold her position for a year. And I couldn't hold it longer because it's not the policy of the Board of Ed. So she stayed 2 years because she was meeting her objective over there and very efficiently. But when she came back, I had given her position, which was rightly so, to someone else. After a year, you have to do that. But I found her a position not far from where I live, in the far northwest area, and one of my principal friends immediately gave her a job. And she would repeatedly say to me, Tuni, my teaching at Chopin made me know that I was an effective teacher. But you got me a job. I'm eternally grateful. My job is easy. I'm teaching children that come from parents who send them to school. They're at 90 percentile in reading, 90 percentile in math. They speak, they travel, they have all the money in the world. But I don't feel like I am teaching. They come prepared. Yeah, I'm challenging them with extra assignments, and she was bright. She loved history. She loved literature. And I know she wasn't cheating them of information, but she didn't feel that inner challenge in her to prove that she could teach the child that came. Who was it that said the child comes with a clean slate? Was it Locke that said that? That tabula rasa in one of your theories that you studied, remember? Which one said that the child comes with an empty slate, knowing nothing? Well, that's not necessarily what she was referring to. But she said, when I taught the child who came from a low income home, a child who had no opportunity to expose to Hawaii and to all these places, or to Disney World, but I taught that child how to read, I felt that I was an effective teacher. And that's why when I spoke earlier and I gave you an example, I will tell you, when you teach children, not necessarily those that come prepared already, have all the background with them. Yes, you are responsible for them. When you can prove that you taught this child how to read, you taught this child to love himself, you taught him social skills, that's a proof that you are a good teacher. Could you please tell me if I can answer a question, because I want to cover a PowerPoint, but I need to hear one of you make a comment as to all that I just covered. Otherwise, I'll feel that I was just talking. Can someone please comment? Anyone? I know some of you are at work. I can hear the background noise. I need someone
actually,
to acknowledge.
this is Latoya. I'm just, I was listening and taking notes, and pretty much to me, it's just really, to be honest, an overview of what you have been saying during their class period since we've been in class, really. Yeah.
It's an overview, right? Latoya, are you finding it a good
Yes, it
review?
is.
Because
it's like where that you
good.
it's like you go on over, so it's like you look at it differently. Go over it, different time.
Okay, and the reason is that an early childhood teacher knows the basic of teaching early childhood, what it is that you were there to do. I'm not talking to you, telling you you have to learn geometry, trigonometry, algebra. That would be a level that I have taught before when I'm preparing you to be a middle school teacher, when I'm preparing you to be a high school teacher, when I'm teaching communications class. But what I am trying to emphasize in you is that moral, ethical responsibility that you have towards the child who has no voice of his own, who comes from different areas and background, and you and I are more morally and ethically responsible for that particular human being. And no way can you ever overlook those fears that we talked about, even though we have enhanced more than they have given us. If I will leave you at the end of this term to re-examine, not just examine, but re-examine what your responsibilities will be, not just to your own biological children, but to the children of others. My job in this course will have been all that I asked for. You know, I'm not big on testing. You know, I'm not big on catching you not learning. But yes, I will re-emphasize it. So to wrap that part up, the social, emotional, I don't want to bring in spiritual because I might offend somebody, but you have that responsibility to see that little frail child, or that little dressed up blondie looking, or that beautiful dark eyes, dark hair, brown skin, pallid child, feel that you are there for him or her. And that it doesn't take much effort. It doesn't take much effort for you to study tonight how you will teach theorems for geometry. It takes your deep-seated ethical and moral feelings, responsibility, and to be able to execute this. And once you have that, you have impacted so many children once you have gone through a few years of teaching. Just think about that. I smile because in the 36 years I was principal, and of course Northeast turned 20, and in between all that, after that, my husband, who taught at Loyola, sometimes I would teach when I was covering for somebody. The thing is that I never stopped thinking of wherever I would go visit students, the students from Northeastern or from Loyola, student teachers. I would walk into buildings, even that this was after I retired as principal, and they would say, "Miss Mester, you taught me. Miss Mester, you remember me." And the principals would say, "You have 7 in my school that you taught." And then I'd go to another, "You have 8, you have 12. The last one I visited, there were 12. It does my heart good, right? That I can see them now in the classrooms teaching, and that they're acknowledging their experience at my classroom. But little babies, you have impacted 20, 30 each year. They've gone into the other grade. You have impacted them, and celebrate that. Now, let me look into giving you at least one PowerPoint that will not, I don't want to overlook this because I want to cover this and send you off with some additional information. So we want to make language development and in action, meaning bringing it to come alive. This is your PowerPoint chapter 13 that I have already shared with you and sent to you. The use of sounds and symbols. This is your foundations class, which when you talk, you sing. We talked about this poetry, reading to children, choral reading, echo reading. You are giving them opportunity to learn that sounds and symbols can be translated to letters and then words and then phrases, sentences and phrases. But if you do not expose them from the onset where they're listening, which is the phonemic awareness, you are depriving the children of the most basic important factors that will lead them to learn how to read. And I said it, learn how to read. Language is expressive and receptive. I've covered that today. It is an innate characteristic of people to want to speak, the babbling, the cooing of the child. As the child looks up at you and starts to make those sounds, that child is expressing his innate desire to communicate with you. Communication is listening. Communication is expressive. Communication is everything that you do, from facial to bodily expressions that I talked to you before. Let's see if this can wrap up our day for today. Language and thought are closely related. Yes. I watched in Gateways how the 6-month child's brain works, and I only saw a tip of it, and I was fascinated. What goes on in the mind of that little one? Language and thought are tools people use to make sense of and interact with the world. We know that. It's a dark world when a child cannot express himself or herself and be a part of conversation. Do we allow them that? Babies do not start life with language, but they acquire it. That's what I'm saying. Their brain is developing and has developed, and part of the brain is a language section that captures languages for all of us. But they're not born speaking, but they're born intaking, absorbing all around them, from postnatal, what impacts that child with the genes that he has brought with him is his surroundings, the ambience, the environment. We call it the environment, which is now the acquisition of learning and behavior. Before that, it was not acquired, it was inherited. So make sure that you know that. Prior to the prenatal is inherited. Postnatal is acquisition. What they acquire comes together with their genes to form that human person, that human child. We move on, teachers. Language of children is different from adults, yeah, but they can capture some big words, right? Their language deals with the present, very egocentric. It's me now. You can't say, wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow is eternal for these children. They want immediate gratification. They want to know immediately that they will be receiving what they have headed out to do. If I took 2 steps because I just learned how to walk, I want to grab everything in my way and toss it because that's fun. I want to pull the tablecloth. I don't know that it will bring the dishes down with it. That's my acquisition. Allow me to do that. I'm egocentric. It's all about me. The whole world revolves around me at that age. And it is, again, important to know that children don't want to wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is eternal. Experiences help build language. Yes. The songs you sing, the books you read, the way you speak to them will build their language. Language experiences during their first 5 years are reflected in their later literary success. That is, you know how many times I've read research that says this? Their early language experience during their first 5 years will be indicative of how they will later learn and understand what they're learning. Imagine the first 5 years where you teach them sight words, you teach them to listen, you teach them that letters have sounds, etc. And that will be indicative of how they will succeed in life, in their education later on. 3 dimensions of children's experiences that relate to later literary success is if you expose them to vocabulary, give them the opportunity to talk, to converse. Conversation means there has to be two-way, receiving and giving. Otherwise, it's not considered conversation. And extended discourse. Home and classroom environments make a very big difference. Language development, and I will read this, so forgive me for reading directly from the slide, which I don't like to do, but this is important. Language development is a process of experience and maturation that follows a universal sequence. Language development is a process of experience that follows a universal sequence. Very, very true, very important. Every time I learned a language, I was able to see myself as that person in that country that was speaking Latin, whether it was in Rome, or that Spanish-speaking person, or the Arabic, which my parents spoke in their country before they moved to England. Everything is a universal pattern. Language learning is a sequence. It's universal. The brain works and functions in that sequential order as a child is acquiring language. Very true. Infants respond to language. They attend to speech, meaning what? They're listening to speech. The word attending means listening to speech. They change their sounds. Parents speak in intonations. Vocalizations of cooing and babbling, which I just mentioned to you, is their way of
Are you done?
and their first begins first with understanding, then they respond. Sentences begin first by telegraph.
I'm not done. I'm still in class. Go away.
Or they go me milk, me water, me sleepy, me
Not
hungry.
done.
Telegraphic. Vocabulary then is elaborated and they
Oh,
melt
tell Phinia, go away.
good together. And then the age 5 or 6, now they're giving me simple sentences and they're emerging into now writing simple sentences. But all the babbling, that's just a step of communication. Children who from a very young age learn language from their families and their learning community, they will use now techniques that work for them. They will include these skills in the classroom. You give them sufficient time, 4 to 6 years, to become proficient in their second language. This is the language learner. The earlier children are exposed to a new language, the faster they will learn that language. Once, and there is research, I'm not guessing, research says that after 16 years old, that pre-adult person, he hasn't reached 18 yet, but that person would still begin to have difficulty learning a new language. Anything under 16, they will capture or learn the language faster. Why is it? Researchers tell us that they don't have the distractions that going into teenage years and adulthood have. The innocent child is not blocked with all the hurdles, preoccupations that the adolescent and the adult already have. So this is true. Include explicit vocabulary instruction where you are going to purposely create vocabulary and have them grow in academic vocabulary. And then they will transfer the skills from their first language. The brain does that. And I'm sure that that's what happened to me when I was learning languages. The benefits of their first language will be at an automaticity. The brain will automatically transfer into learning the new language. Don't ever let anyone make you think that teaching second, third languages to a child will confuse them. No. Like I told you, Africa has what, 52 to 53 countries in the continent of Africa. And if you listen to children walking to school, every division in one of the cities alone, not even one of the countries, they speak so many dialects, and the children walking together pick up every single dialect of those around them, and they transfer immediately into the dialect of that child or their peers or as they're playing. It's a fascinating study that has been done with in Africa with young children. India as well, they all have their own dialects, and there is no way that anyone can say that the child gets confused. He just automatically shifts into that language that he's been exposed to, and with as many languages that he has been exposed to. The ability to speak in a language other than one's native language is an asset, not a deficit. Second language learners simultaneously they acquire the new language, and it is a successive acquisition. They're successful in it. A variation of speech patterns within a language, that's what dual language is, where you teach two languages simultaneously. And once you're teaching this language this morning, you stick to that language. You don't shift into the child's language of comfort. And then that child is immersed into that new language. The second part of the day for dual language is now you're teaching them in their native language. Dual language is one of the biggest successes that have taught children how to read, write, speak, read, and write new languages. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, CPS did not pursue dual language in all the grades that they wanted to. They started with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, but they had to stop when the pandemic came, and a lot of the money they had set aside, we hope that the state of Illinois will be established this, will bring this back again, because our children in early years were beginning to learn their second language through dual language. But you have to have the teachers prepared and know how to teach it. And it does cost a lot of money because you need two teachers for one grade level in that one classroom, one that dominates the other language and is able to teach it. So it is costly. Let me see, I think I missed one thing. Here we go with have all types of books and stories that are multicultural, plenty of time for them to use and handle the materials. Make sure that literary creations are done by them. They create the charts, they put them up on the wall. These are children's work, not yours. And your work would be anchor charts, where they can look at the charts on the wall that they can follow in sequence. This is how you tie your shoe, they see the pictures, they see the explanation. This is how we brush our teeth, or you're teaching them 1 + 1, and you have objects drawn. Those are called anchor charts. But everything you can put up that the children have produced would be what I as a principal would be looking for in the classroom. Process of literacy begins before a child is 6. Remember that. So a lot of this depends on his preschool years. Reading and writing develop concurrently. They come currently at the same time it's being developed. Literacy develops in everyday activities. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Look at these. Those are your 4 State of Illinois initiatives. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Don't forget those. In terms of international IRA, this is the organization that does current research and brings it to us educators. They have come up with the fact that early literacy development, awareness and exploration, experimenting with reading and writing. They pretend to write and they're using CR instead of that's experimenting. Early reading and writing, they're looking at books, they're reading the pictures, they're trying to tell the story just from the pictures. That's early reading and writing. And then they transition from reading and they write what they're saying because you're using the language experience approach. Oh, you told me that
I'm not done yet.
school, and I put that on the chart, so we read it down. And the other child sees that when he opens his mouth,
Good for you. Can you go away? I'm not done with class.
back to each other. That's what transitional reading and writing is all about. So we're going to talk now about this slide. Hopefully I'm going through it very quickly. Let me see if I can go through this quickly. Help children learn that print is a form of language. Yes, we just said that. Observe as children learn to recognize words and make sure you use your word wall to put up the new words they have learned and to review them the next day. Very important. And here we want to make sure that the development of literacy, they're growing up to read, to learn how to read, and then they learn to read, and then they're reading now for comprehension as they become third graders and fourth graders. And real readers will love to pick up a book to read because they want to enjoy the reading the book, not because you're forcing them to read the book. Print-rich environment all around, you have labeled everything, and they're able to see words all around them that are meaningful to them. They scribble, they use, like I said, this is the LEA. The child says something, you write it down the way the child says it. This was originated in Australia. You write what the child says and you read it back, and they read it back to you in choral reading. So that shows the transition from saying to writing to reading after you write it. We teach through whole language or phonics, where we teach them sounds and elephant. A is E. You found out, you taught them that the letter L has L sound, and if you put an E to it, it's le. So those are called word attack. That's when you're teaching phonics. Phonemic awareness is just sounds. Once you connect the sounds with print, it becomes phonics. We talked about that before. Again, I'm reviewing this. Where you want to broaden the interest in children so they capture concepts. They can obtain information, not just transmit, but they obtain it and then they transmit information. They're diverse thinkers. They're adding more, explaining, tell me why. And then you give them open-ended questions so they complete the thoughts. So they show an understanding. Make sure that you have lots of books. The principals now must budget for you to have a beautiful library, extensive in all different genres for your children, fiction, non-fiction, etc. And here we tell stories in order to have them share cultural heritages. They're rich, they're learning about people around the world. And then, of course, dramatization is also a form of assessment, and it's called performance assessment. We'd like to see drama in the classroom to show that children have learned, and that's why we call it performance assessment. Puppetry, we have a course at Northeastern. I think it was an elective that was called puppetry. I know that the teacher retired. I hope that she has been replaced, but children love storytelling with puppetry. And of course, book games and stuff using audio and video. Just don't overdo the video because you want them to hear you. You can even record your voice, but don't stick them onto a tablet all of the time. You have to have that interaction with them. And if they're just watching this tablet, there is no receiving an expression. They're just listening. So we want them to express themselves, speak. The grammar comes later on. Their enjoyment of language through singing. Of course, this builds vocabulary quite a bit. Once you're singing and telling them stories, articulation is how children actually say the sounds and words. Some may have a lisp right now, but they'll overcome it. And if it is not overcome, then you have to refer them to a speech therapist. And I know I'm going through this very fast. They put their language in the cognitive domain, in the part of the brain that is going to hold that language for them to grow in language and vocabulary more and more, so that they can now transfer it to reading and to writing. Adults should know the individual children and develop meaningful relationships. That's a review of what we started with. And home languages are to be invited into the program. This is the child whose home language is not English. And of course, we can go into teaching bilingual education later on. Outdoor activities and indoor activities, art, science, environmental learning, reading, just like when they see McDonald's or they see Target, they know they can read that. And then, of course, language, you label everything. They read, they write, they listen, have the manipulatives.
Not done.
Where they can communicate, they can classify, they can do Legos, they can link and logs, whatever you have in there, as long as it invites them to talk about their activity. as they're playing and learning through play. We have routines, very important. Children need routines every day that you come to class. You do not change the routine that you have taught them, because then you just confuse these babies. And here we have understand how children learn a second language. We talked about that. You're still going to have to take 18 credit hours in teaching bilingual education or ESL, and that's going to come later on for you. It is a requirement that you do have an ESL endorsement. I hope your professors are talking to you about that. And of course, they develop their language in their own way, at their own pace. You are going to model good language, acceptable language. Try not to use slangs with them, because you're not doing street talking, you're doing academic language with them. And it's standard English, so that's what you're going to do. Cognitive and language development involve listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And as you plan enriching activities for your children, you are definitely helping these children to create and to learn and grow in vocabulary. Do you have any questions for Ms. Lester?
Nope.
Any questions? I hope that you have had an experience listening and writing some notes. Any questions from me? No? Anna, Yesenia, Victoria, Latoya, Evie, are you all there with me still?
No questions.
No
Okay.
No question.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a beautiful afternoon. And I'm sorry I took an extra 5 minutes of your time.
Okay,
But
thank
it's
you.
a pleasure. Bye, students. Take care.